I'm joined once again by my brother, Scott Holliday. And in this conversation, as always, Scott shows up fully authentic and vulnerable and shares what he's been up to recently and some of the challenges he's navigated in being in an ethical, non monogamous relationship. We kind of get into some of the pitfalls of polyamory and also the opportunities that arise through navigating that type of relationship and how it really can be a catalyst of personal growth. I absolutely love how Scott just shows up so honestly and authentically in everything that he shares, in the difficulties that he faces, and the way he worked in overcoming them. It's a really beautiful podcast, and I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I did having it. Before we get started, if you haven't yet subscribed, please do that. And lastly, if you enjoy these types of conversations, then come and join me and other like-minded people where we meet every Wednesday virtually for the Finding Freedom group call. We get into all different types of self-exploration and ideas around consciousness and personal growth. So if you enjoy this, you'll absolutely love that, and we would love to have you there. All right, that's it from me. I hope you enjoy the episode. Brother, it's great to have you back on the podcast.
It's great to be back on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. We were just catching up, and the way that we do, you and I, we can just kind of get into the flow of conversation. So I'm glad we've hit record now, actually, so we can get into things and capture it, because you were just starting to say some of the things that have been going on for you over the last year and the things you've been navigating, and it actually sounds like a really good opportunity to to share this for the listeners. I think one of the things that people really enjoyed about our last conversation was like the authenticity and the flow and the vulnerability and the openness. So I think we've got a great opportunity for some more of that magic.
Excellent. I love that feedback. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, give us a little overview of what's been alive for you recently.
Well, what's been alive for me recently is, this time in my life where I've really got to a space where I don't have to put a lot of focus and effort on my work, and I can exist and learn more about myself. So I've got to a really wonderful spot in my life, some financial freedom, and some places where I can explore who I am and how I want to show up without fear of scarcity and how am I going to make my next paycheck and things like that. So what that has opened a whole new door and realm of possibilities, and lots of lessons too. So it's the core of what I've been experiencing lately is intimacy in my relationship and the dynamics and boundaries and my romantic relationship, that is. So I've done a lot of work over the past few years on learning who I am in romantic relationships and how I show up. Like I've talked before, infidelity wrecked all my prior relationships in my young adulthood, leading up to about the age of 32, which is a few years ago. And it was due to like a mother wound and abandonment and how I was raised in a hypersexual environment. And I learned a lot about myself, how to show up in truth, transparency, and authenticity, and the benefits of that. It's just been night and day difference. Now, in my current relationship, that's how I started. I on the first date, I said, "Hey, here's all of me. Here's who I am, and this is how I operate." And it was full transparency. It's the first time I've ever done that, especially on a first date, and it is beautiful. It created such a beautiful foundation that we held this standard in a relationship of truth, transparency, love, and honesty. So throughout the entirety of my relationship with my partner, Liv, we've been an open relationship. I guess you could even consider it like a non-monogamous, ethically non-monogamous. And I really, throughout the whole, about a year into our relationship, a year and a few months, I really utilize that container. I have pages like OnlyFans where I do my sexual expression, I generate revenue, all that kind of stuff. And I had met with men and women to create the content, and had all these experiences. And it's been in our relationship container, it's mainly been, like, especially on the personal side, it's mainly been women. And I've appreciated that for my partner, and I felt really great and expressed. And I played on that side of it, where I'm the person who's being the risk taker and exploring, and my partner has been very steady. And and I think this is just from my understanding, from a woman's point of view or perspective. It just feels safer that way for them to have the male take the lead. That's just my experience of this with Liv. I'm not saying all of it like that. And it's been great and wonderful and very exciting and thrilling, and everything I've wanted. So then, I got to thinking. I was like, well, I kept inviting her and say, hey, are there any experiences that you want to have? And I want to facilitate that. I want to reciprocate this experience that I'm having over my side. And something subconscious in me or unconscious in me was wanting that to happen for her, and give her the opportunity to experience my side of things. Well, the universe gave us that opportunity. So we had a dear friend of ours, a really wonderful guy, needed a place to stay for about a month. So we're like, okay, you can come stay with us. And we hit it off. He's really fun, sweet, and caring. So we, in my naivety, because I had some reflections from some other mentors of mine to maybe hold off on doing this, but I felt very confident about creating a situation where we could have some fun and play together. So I invited that in, and I encouraged, because I wanted everyone to have this experience, and I wanted myself to have this experience, to see how, I think subconsciously, how I could navigate it, handle it, and show up. And a little bit of me wanted to, looking back, prove that, hey, I can give this back to you. The gift that you give me, I can give to you. So we did that. We created an experience where we were all together and had fun and play. It was a sexual experience, and it was a great time. It was fantastic, and something that I was really happy for Liv to experience and myself to experience. With this person living with us, and the way Liv is a very emotionally connected person, and she's goes very deep with her friends, and intimacy is a really important part for her. So I noticed that I started having issues. I started having, I say, it was probably the first time in my life I was really feeling an envy or insecurity around the amount of intimacy that was being had between Liv and this other person. We'll call him Tom. She gave the phrase Tom to depersonalize it, the other man. So Tom, and I was fine with the sexual experiences, but then when there was lots of times where there's cuddling or closeness, conversation, whatever it was, I started to triggers like, what have I created here? I'm giving a lot of my energy and resources in my home to create these experiences and everyone to feel love and happiness. But I started to feel like I wasn't getting enough ROI, or return on investment. I wasn't getting as much as I was giving. And it was challenging, because I created this, and it was a big lesson for me in learning about my boundaries of overgiving. Because at this time I was offering my home, my space, my time, my energy, my attention to others, and I just didn't know when to stop. And I didn't want to inhibit or take away from Liv having any experiences. So I felt myself in a place that was a bit challenging, because I was like, well, I didn't speak up for myself. Say, hey, this is taking a lot on my heart right now. It's taking a heavy toll. So I kept showing up for this, and we had another sexual experience, and I wasn't about the intimacy, and it was just about the sexual experience. So that energy was felt by the others, by Liv and Tom. And the experience didn't feel as fun and playful because there was not the intimacy, because I felt the intimacy was so much I didn't want to experience anymore. So then that put us in a situation, or that created a situation where Liv was like, well, I'm desiring, and she speaks her truth and transparency. She's like, I'm desiring a solo time with Tom as a friend, and then there may be sexual experience there. So I was like, whew, I'm going to show up for that. Oh, sorry, one second. So as I was saying, I created this experience there, and I was not wanting to dive any more into intimacy. Oh, okay. So Liv was wanting a solo experience because she wanted to have her full expression, and that caused some discord in me, because a lot of what my foundation, the idea of this relationship, is Liv says, "Hey, I don't want any other man, and I don't need that or desire that." And then it flipped on me. So a lot of my I was disorientated. I was like, well, what's going on here? What is she seeking that I can't offer? And that caused me a lot of stress.
Mm.
But I was always in the moment, okay, how do I show up in love? How do I choose choices love? I first must love myself. What I was doing was I was overriding, and I was putting the love and attention on the relationship container, and I was neglecting myself and not speaking up for how I truly felt. And how I truly felt was, hey, this is a lot on my nervous system to handle. Whenever we had engagements with other women and brought them into the container, they might be with us for a maximum of 4 days. Well, this was going on because I didn't have any reprieve. I was in the home with the other two people. And so my nervous system was constantly on. I was constantly doing work, thinking, okay, how do I show up in full loving support of my partner? How do I make sure that this is comfortable for everyone and I show up in love? How do I express my emotions without pushing on anybody else's and causing them to not be their true selves? Because if I'm going to love Liv or anybody else, I want to love them for who they are, independent of how it makes me feel, or how whatever their actions make me feel. So I went through this whole month of doing this, and I finally was able to vocalize on the the weekend before we left to travel to move to our new location. I said, "Hey, this is really heavy. This is taking a big toll on me, and I don't want to experience this anymore." And when I finally spoke up, Liv was like, "Oh," and she I said it with my heart, like I had the energy into it, and she felt it, and she's like, "Oh, I did not realize that it was causing um, this much stress on you. I didn't know it was causing this much pain." And then we started having some conversations around that, and she really she really showed up for me. She really did. We essentially reversed roles, and I got to be on her side of things, and I got to experience what it's like for a partner to be with another person and what that felt like. For me, the way I tend to operate is I'm body first and mind second, which is a privilege I think I have as a man too, where I can just throw myself in situations and worry about the consequences later. So I can learn hard and fast some of these lessons that she takes her time learning. So yeah, I'm still in the process of like being able to fully convey my message and my learning here, but I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you about it and share my story with others. It's not curated, it's raw and real. So as time goes on and we remind each other of our love and our commitment, and we set boundaries, and we set intentions going forward, it's been very healing. Understanding what's really truly important to us, and how to engage with potential thirds and partners in the future. So it's been a really big learning experience. And with all this being said, I want to make sure that I do emphasize that everyone in the container was their word and followed through, was very loving and attentive to one another's emotions and feelings. So I couldn't have asked for, I think, a better situation for this to happen, for me to learn quickly. But yeah, the intensity was so high because my love for Liv is so deep and immense that I haven't had a relationship like this where I've loved someone so deeply that I didn't realize all of what I was getting into. Yeah. So
Just a quick one from me. Over the last 12 months, I've been working on the creation of a 6-month mastermind called Freedom Within. And I am really excited to say that it's going to be launching this January. The mastermind is dedicated to 3 different phases. The freedom from the past, where we let go of the things that really hold us back from being the truest essence of who we are, from past traumas, from limiting beliefs, and all of those things that weigh heavy on us throughout of our lives. Phase 2 is the freedom to really be who you are. Once you let go of the ball and chain of the past, who are you truly in your fullest expression? And I believe that truly all of us just want to be the way that we're meant to be. And lastly, phase 3 is the freedom to become. From that place of wholeness, of feeling complete, of letting go of all the things from the past, who do you become? Not from a place of lack, not from the place of needing, but the way that an acorn yearns to become the oak tree, because that is what it's destined for. Throughout this process, you'll discover your unique gift, your talent, what it is that you want to share, that you want to birth, that you want to create, and discover what your true north is. What direction do you want to go in? And what would truly create the most beautiful and meaningful life for you? If that calls out to you, then I encourage you to hit the link below and register a free 30-minute discovery call where you and I will have a conversation and we can talk about how this program could benefit you, exactly what's involved over the 6 months. And there's so many exciting things that are involved in it, as well as special guests like Maestro Hamilton Souther, who is a dear friend of the podcast. So if this calls out to you, go ahead, hit the link below, schedule a call, find out more, and see if it's a good fit, and you can join the waitlist ready to start in January, making 2024 the most meaningful and purpose-driven year yet. All right, that's it from me. Let's get back into the episode. Wow, thank you for sharing, brother. It's I think this kind of crops up a lot in the kind of, what space do we call this? It's kind of like some new age, some spiritual development, some personal growth, but in this kind of or expanded consciousness.
Mhm.
I think this kind of subject does show up quite a lot, where there seems to be a bit of a dichotomy where people are caught between this. Maybe if some people, I'm not saying this in your case, but some people almost feel like maybe this is, if they were fully grounded and rooted in themselves, then they can just be okay with their beloved doing those things. And hey, if I'm secure and I'm solid, then I'm fine with them doing that. And it seems like sometimes people can almost not get addicted to the work, but they can see an opportunity like, oh, if this makes me feel jealous, then maybe I've got to address something here. And I wonder, is that the case? Or actually, is it okay to say, no, I don't feel okay with that. And that's okay.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's was one of the things that I came to realization on is I'm capable of doing this. I have the capacity to do this, but do I need to do this? Is this what I truly desire? And those are some of the things that we both learned is through this, we've got more clarity on what is it we we want to have in our life? What is it we're trying to create together by being a couple? And
Yeah.
we've learned that, okay, both of us can hold space for one another in expression and our love is strong, and we can go through this together, but is it necessary? And how do we, if we choose to do this in the future, how do we do it in a way that's more conducive to the integrity of the relationship? And we both are coming to the realization for ourselves as the relationship container, we're looking to settle down and have a family. And whenever I know I learned heavily on my side, if if she, like, I felt like, okay, if she's like devoting this time and energy of intense emotion and connection over here, and it felt like a romantic way. It's like, is that actually benefiting our relationship? In what way? Was it that was the question mark. There may be some way, but is it necessary? And then it gave me the same tool, like, oh, okay, so if I'm going off to do this with another person, like if I'm going off to have um, like a sexual connective experience with another person, without her, independent of her, uh, is am I doing this from like a, I don't know, a hedonistic place? Am I doing this from a place that's like really serving me? Is that who I am and needs to be done? Or uh, or could I focus that energy back on the relationship and nurture the relationship? And that's at a crossroads where I'm at right now. It's like, is it maturity or is this actually who I am? Um, and that's the big question that is currently on the forefront of my mind is, okay, who am I when it comes to the sexual expression, and what's necessary to create in the relationship? Like, hey, I need to have this expression. This is what it's going to be. Um, or do I direct that energy back into the relationship in a healthy way where it's building more romance and intimacy in my relationship? So those are
Yeah,
two of the things I've been really pondering.
it's great. And I think, within that, we actually have to kind of hold the fact that we are all within an individual lifetime evolutionary. So, what may have been your allurement and desire a year ago or 2 years ago
Hmm.
might not be now. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes people hold on to, well, this is how I felt then, so it must be how I feel now, without actually stopping and clarifying. In my evolution, do I still feel that allurement? Do I still feel drawn to that? And whether it's in relationships or in any aspect of life, we do change so much. So I think taking that time to say, hmm, is this still aligned? Is this still like, where I want to be and how I want to direct my energy is really important.
Yeah, and I've been, thank you. I totally agree, because not only has it been that, but it's also been in my business direction too. Like, how do I
Mm,
want to show up in service to the world? Do I
yeah.
want to, mentor life coaching and spirituality? Do I want to continue with my fitness? Do I want to do something completely different? So I had a number of things that brought a lot of challenges to me during this time. It was like a perfect storm. I had a move across country. I had the relationship situation where we had a third, and then I have a period of time here where I'm looking at business direction, what I want to do. So there's a
Mm,
lot of uncertainty, and where I gained a lot of my certainty was my relationship container. So that's a sign for me to say, hey, I should take a step back, focus on. For me, this is a sign. Take a step back, focus on myself, and what helps me feel whole and complete. What gets Scott grounded and certain, regardless of whatever circumstances around him. I'd like to think I don't have a debilitating attachment to my relationship, but this experience, I believe, shined a light on where I can be more self-sufficient. I can be more self-assured.
mhm.
So it was great. It was tough. It was tough and challenging, but in the best ways possible. And I'll tell you what, I'm really grateful that I have the partner that I do to go through this with, because it made it tremendously easier and
Mm.
and more loving. And yeah, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, that's amazing. A few things I'd love to dive into actually. One,
Yeah.
as you were saying about like the options and things, and something that I've said a couple of times recently, not anything to do with intimate relationships or sexual, but just in life in general, is um there's lots of things I could do, but that doesn't mean I should.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
feel that.
actually, there's a lot of power in not doing. There's a lot of power in seeing all the options and saying, no, like maybe I want to direct my energy here. And it's not to say that going with other options is a problem, but I think, sometimes we can think more is more. And it's actually good to it's actually good to just examine that And one of the things that I found, I was kind of talking to you before we hit record, and I'm in a relationship now with honestly the most like kind of wonderful and incredible woman I've ever met, and actually I'd extend that to human in so many ways. Um, she blows my mind in so many ways. She really does. And I was just thinking about the dynamic that we have because it's definitely not something I've experienced before. It doesn't feel. It feels very grounded. It feels very
Mhm.
secure. It feels very safe. Um, and I actually feel like her love sets me free, and actually only desiring her sets me free.
Oh, beautiful.
And sometimes we can think it's the opposite, right? It's like, oh, like
Yes.
commitment, I have no freedom. I feel like I have the most freedom being with her and only desiring her, only being interested in her. And I
Mm,
really feel like her love actually gives me more freedom,
okay.
because I can put all my energy and focus and all the love that I have, I can really put it into this person and all that adoration. So
Yeah.
that's been I've never experienced that before in that way, in this
Mhm.
specific way where I had the words for it and felt like, oh wow, I feel way more freedom just being with this person.
Okay, so that reminds me of quotes or people I've heard say that, when you start adding structure to your day, you think that it'd be confining, but it's actually very freeing because you know what you're doing and you're getting it done. And I can apply the same thing to my sexual expression.
Mm,
If I know where I'm pouring my energy into, then I know where I'm not, and I can reduce confusion and gain more clarity. Because being in the mind and playing through hypotheticals and illusions can be exhausting.
mm,
So what's challenging for me at this point is one of the things that I enjoy doing is my OnlyFans content creation and creating conducive parameters around what that looks like for the relationship is going to be like the number one priority for me. The time being, it's like, how does this look like in our relationship, and how do I make sure that I'm showing up in a way where she can trust and feel safe with what I'm doing,
mm,
just like I would want from her, a desire from her. Um, how can I show up in that way where it doesn't take away energy from her work and doesn't take energy away from my work? Uh, so that's gonna be the main focus now is creating structure and knowing, okay, if I'm going to be doing this, how long will I be doing it for? What does it look like when we start a family? Is that something I really want to be doing when I have a child and yeah, and do I really want to be going away on a trip to do creation with like specifically another woman? She doesn't really have there's no triggers for her when I go do work with another man, but I totally understand this because I wouldn't have that. I feel the same way if she hasn't experienced another woman.
yeah.
But if I were to go have an experience with another woman to create content for my page and she's at home with a child or something like that, that's going to feel really
Mm,
icky for me. Yeah,
yeah.
I believe right now if I can project out there. So um, it's now a great spot for me. Like the universe is reflecting to me, hey, what are you going to do here? What does your future look like? And that's why I really appreciate this relationship because she has the capacity to hold so much of my expression, so much of um, how I want to show up. Uh, and it gives me an opportunity. It gives me so many opportunities to grow instead of like fight or argue. We can co-create and collaborate what our relationship looks like. So eternally grateful for that. And it's like, wow, I am more. It's more enticing to stay in the relationship. The more I think about it, and we're like, wow, I've got a partner here who's willing to work with me, and they love me for who I am. So that's one of the foundational things that we do for each other is to make sure we love each other for our full expression. And I love doing that for her, and I love receiving that from her.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's what I mean. Like that, it's actually freeing. It's
Yeah.
freeing to have someone that you can be you with, and that actually desires to see more and more of you, to see more of you in your entirety, in your fullness, and your uniqueness, and to hold that, and to embrace that, and to adore that. I mean, I can't think of much that's more freeing than that. And I mean, does anyone really want more than that? Isn't that kind of what everyone wants, is to be fully
We want to be
seen?
loved and seen. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Intimacy into me, you see. Someone said something like that. It's like how much
yeah,
we see into each other. Yeah. So, um,
yeah,
I'm starting to like ask myself the really important questions, and answering them honestly is going to determine the level of freedom and happiness that I experience going forward. Is how
yeah,
honest I'm going to answer these questions, and be like, being able. So one of the biggest things too that one of the biggest tools I use in my relationship is being willing to surrender the relationship in order to be in full truth and alignment with myself and my values. So it's a tough one at times, because whenever I love someone so deeply, it's there's a people pleasing thing. It's like, oh, I love them so deeply, I want to keep them close. But that can distort who I am, and then I can be not myself in a relationship. So then the relationship will start to corrode because I'm not being
mm.
myself. She'll feel the energy. Um, so that's the next challenge. Like, okay, who is Scott, and how am I going to express that to my partner? Yeah.
And you know, here's something that's, and I'm sharing this because I've been navigating and this in the most beautiful way. And again, in my partner, she is right on the same wavelength with me. The way we think is so kind of parallel. So we have these amazing conversations where we can have these 3-hour conversations that go by like that.
Wow.
And one of the things we were saying is that at the beginning, she was asking me what kind of things that I like, and you know, some of the things were like regards in relationship, or it might be like in like
Hmm.
sexually. And my answer was, I don't know with you. Because like now, because the me that I am with her has never shown up
Yes.
before. So
Yes.
I feel like I actually can't accurately answer that. And if I think I know what I like with her, it's like I'm actually not being in the moment. And then it made me really kind of realize that that I was before almost doesn't really exist. And the I that I am now with her, it's an evolved different version of me. And sometimes it made me think about this. So one of the things that Eckhart Tolle talks about is there's the level of thought, then there's below thought, which is, let's say, watching TV. So you're switching
Hmm.
off, you go below thought. Then there's above thought, which is like meditation,
Yep.
takes you above thought. Both things take us out of thought. And then I was thinking about the idea of losing yourself. Now, there's this sense of self. Then some people get in a relationship and they can go like the level below, which is I lose myself in a bad way in the relationship.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
something tells me there's I lose myself, which is I kind of surrender what I was to open up to who I can become in this relationship in a way that I never could have come before
Yeah.
if not for that partner.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a polarity to me. That sounds like the pendulum swinging the opposite end. Yeah. No. For an example regarding that, first off, I think I don't know if you have yet or not, but I think it would be awesome to have your partner on a podcast, and I'd love to hear you guys talk. That'd be really cool. Okay, now with that being said, um, some things that have opened up to me that wasn't true in other relationships is the potential of having a family, uh,
Mm,
having a home together, things that I didn't have with my ex-wife, which were huge red flags towards the end of our relationship. But now it's like, oh, my desires and what I'm open to are completely different. I'm open to marrying again. I'm open to that
mm,
level of sacred union and commitment. I'm open to creating a family with you. So I can completely relate to finding a person and that person showing up in a way where it opens up new possibilities in the future. So a lot of things that I was doing was like, oh, I need to communicate and have sexual experiences with multiple people in order for me to feel like myself. I'm starting to really ask myself that question: is that really what I want? Um, is that really what I'm looking for in my life? Is it really serving me? Um, so yeah, there's great questions and questions I may not have asked myself if I had another partner.
Yeah. I think it's so powerful to just to explore and play with the idea of the I that was no longer is, and who could I become in this relationship? Because actually, I think when we ask that question, we open up to all the possibilities of what we can evolve into.
Yeah,
And sometimes the idea of who I think I am can actually prevent me from really evolving into my greatness.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, maybe I'm restricting myself by the idea of who I think I am. So getting present with myself and doing a lot of meditation sounds like a good plan, a good recipe. It's like, okay, what is it that I feel into myself? If I have this experience, what is that going to feel like for me? What am I going to gain from this? What are the consequences of my actions? Those people around me that I love, do I want to put them through that? Yeah, there's lots of really pertinent questions that come up with this topic. But being
And
present is going to be. I'll take a page out of Eckhart Tolle's book
mm,
and focus on some more presence.
it's really it's a beautiful inquiry to go into, and it requires you to kind of open your heart and to be vulnerable with yourself, and to ask questions where sometimes maybe you get to the point of clarification where you think, actually, maybe this part of me has to die. And that doesn't mean a bad thing, because in the death of one thing is the birth of something else. And if the birth of the new thing is a beautiful birth, it's like, okay, can I let this old thing go?
Yeah, yeah. And it's also, I've noticed with my work on myself and work with clients, something that's familiar can be very uncomfortable, but we can stay there. We can stay there with the familiarity because we're used
Yeah.
to it. And the uncertainty of the unknown can be terrifying and feel like a huge threshold to cross in order to grow or expand. Um,
Mm.
so I think there's a lot of beauty on the other side of this. Now, what's what's really what's really nice too is that I'm not really looking for solo, like solo experiences. I'd like to, like, my desire in this relationship is to have experiences with her. Every time I have experience with my partner, it amplifies it amplifies the experience of what I'm having. So uh, there's I can still operate in these capacities. I just would like to have my partner with me, and that seems like the direction it's going is have them together. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm working towards on that
Mm.
end.
Just this morning, I've been doing Mark Gaffney's Holy of Holies, which are like his kind of
Mm-hmm.
like most intimate kind of like guidance, mentorship type
Mm-hmm.
teachings. And there's like a small group. And one of the things that we were asked to do on the last call was to kind of come up with, what are our 3 examples of a deepest heart's desire and 3 examples of pseudo desires, which are like they're unclarified and we might think they're a desire, but if we're to clarify, we go, it's not really my desire.
Yeah, I've experienced some of those. Like, wait a minute, I desired this, and now we're doing it. This is not quite what it panned out to be. Or what it's better to be left in the fantasy zone.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So it's funny because part of my nature is, people kind of, there's like an email thread and people sent their replies in and it was like 3, 3. And my nature is I wrote out 2 A4 pages. but the A4 page, like the first bit was actually on, as I was really kind of thinking about it, things started to come up and it was quite interesting. I might actually just pull the email up and read out what I discovered, because I had some feeling around this, but I gained some good clarity and I think it's worth a share. So little intro. Okay. So I gained some clarification on something that I'd felt before, but not given words to, and I'd like to share my ponderings before I share my desires / pseudo desires. As I sat with my desires of both past and present, what I came to notice is that many of my doing, having, being desires exist in both the pseudo and the true desire. It wasn't so much the what that changed, but the why. And it seems as though the difference is if it existed in the pre-tragic, tragic, or post-tragic. I can clarify that in a second.
Okay.
As an example, and this kind of gives an idea of the pre-tragic, tragic, and post-tragic, actually. As an example, I loved professional wrestling as a young kid, and I would fantasize about having the physicality, stature, and ability of a wrestler because I thought it was awesome. So that was my desire to be in that kind of shape, pre-tragic. As a kid, like big strong guy, looked awesome. Then as I got older into my teen years and found myself being ashamed of my overweight body and feeling unworthy of many things, this created the driving force to attain the same type of physique. By 23, I was 220 pounds, single figure body fat.
Mhm.
But it was a response to the tragic. It was actually, I was in the tragedy of not accepting myself and not being okay with how I was. So my desire at that point went from pre-tragic into the tragic. These days, I find myself still having the desire to be in good shape, but not because I feel like I need to in order to be enough, but because it's aligned with my values of health, and I physically feel so much better when I am. I don't feel the need to be super rigid, and I'm fine with fluctuation depending on the season and what's going on in my life. But as an overarching sense, I enjoy being in good physical condition. This feels clarified, and in the post tragic of being incredibly rigid previously and actually not feeling satisfied when I was in the best shape I'd been in. So, I wonder how many of our desires are consistent. Like there's an underlying desire that we have, and the
Mhm.
factor that influences it being a true desire versus a pseudo desire is the driving force, and if it's pre-tragic, tragic, post-tragic.
Oh, beautiful.
Furthermore, last bit. Furthermore,
Okay.
it seems uh, it seems as though the why isn't always linear, and sometimes the tragic can creep back in as the driving force rather than the clarified post-tragic, which points to the importance of regularly checking in to feel if I'm fully aligned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful, and I can relate to that on both my fitness journey and my relationships.
Mm.
Um, Keeping in check was really important because for me, my conditioning around my sexuality and my physical appearance and health um, has been really impressed upon me when I was young and growing up. So
Yeah.
it's really easy to it's really easy for me to bounce back and default that if I'm tired or I'm have a lot of stressors in life. So I really appreciate the insight on this. And my whys too have changed a lot. Like whenever I was really deep into the bodybuilding scene, um, I was looking for safety and security and for love and all these things like that. And now it's changed to where I'm looking to express how I feel about myself on the inside, express on the outside, and also to be healthy. And my body's changed over the years, but much more healthy. And my why, like I still want that physical aesthetic appearance, but I want it for myself.
Hmm.
And it's I can totally relate to that. As far as relationships, um, my relationships have been less about what needs can I get from someone else, what needs can be filled by someone else, to more like what can I give and
Yeah.
what can I experience with a partner.
Hmm.
So it's been a healing process and it's been a journey, but I can completely relate. And I love the perspective you have on. I'm pretty
Yeah.
tragic at post.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's one of Mark's teaching. So I was just kind of like weaving that in. I was thinking about it, and it's interesting. Like I three of my clarified pseudo desires. Maybe I'll share one of them just for people listening as well, because
Yeah.
it might be helpful. Um, so one of my pseudo desires is for pseudo acceptance and connection, and I say pseudo because it's not really acceptance and connection, but I expanded on that. So whilst acceptance and connection absolutely align with a true desire, one of the ways this shows up for me in its shadow is by saying yes to things that are not my allurements and that don't allow for my full expression of unique gifts to shine, because I feel like I have to say yes in order to maintain acceptance and connection. When I do this, I feel a diminishment in my sense of self, and I actually become less trustable to myself.
Mm. Yeah, and I know whenever my self-trust starts eroding, um, I start to have some real big difficulties and challenges in life. Yeah, I feel a lot of imposter syndrome whenever I don't show up for myself. I feel resentment towards those I have overgiven to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and
That's a beautiful
it's
share.
and sometimes just that saying yes, like, oh yeah, yeah, sure. But actually it's like, do I feel a contraction in myself when I say that yes? Where I feel like, for example, sometimes, and I've felt this when someone's asked me if I can do something, and it's like, well, I could, but it feels like a waste of me because there's something else that I could do that would be way more valuable, knowing what my unique gifts are, and I could do that thing, but it's like it kind of feels like a waste of me and what I'm actually good at.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah.
It's kind of like if you ask Gordon Ramsay to go and wash the dishes, it's like, well, he could, but
He's totally capable of doing it, but are we really?
but he might be better off doing something else. And that's like another one of those things of like, there are lots of things that I could do. It doesn't mean I should.
Should.
And that's been that clarity that I've been getting, which is like really homing in on what am I actually allured to, what actually allows for my unique gifts to shine through, where I feel like I'm honoring myself, but not the selfish myself. It's it's
Mm,
myself that I feel is aligned with integrity, with love, with truth, with beauty, and aligned with God. Aligned with that, that's where I want to operate from. And when I do certain things, I feel like I fall out of that.
yes, yes. Okay, yeah. So that's a lot of what I believe I'm currently going through is what is in full alignment with my true self. Am I here to be sexually expressed? Am I here for some other greater purpose than myself? Is my expression? I've been reflecting this quite a bit over the past few years that my authenticity and my reflection, or my authenticity and um, my expression has been a guiding light for others.
Mm.
So that's been a nice reflection from others. But I'm currently in a place where okay, well, how do I show up in this relationship that I love and desire, and also be my authentic self? So,
Mm.
operating in alignment with both those. And
Here's a question. You said your authenticity there and like expression has been like a guiding light for others. Do you ever experience the feeling where maybe sometimes you don't want to be expressed in a certain way, but you feel like you have to because you've kind of created um, a flavor of who
mm,
Scott is? And then I just wonder, and this is something I've been, again, like I'm always in contemplation, and I was thinking about this idea of the thing that once freed us can eventually enslave us.
mm.
And it's like there's something that maybe at one side actually freed me into this level of liberty and freedom, and that it broke me out of like a certain level. But after a certain amount of time, it's like it actually keeps me in this level and prevents me from moving to the next one. And I just wonder, like when you were saying then about expression, it's been a guiding light for others. I just wonder, like, is there any time where you feel
Oh
like
yeah.
you have to be that because that's what's expected?
Yes, yes, that's definitely an experience I've had,
Mm.
especially over the past 3 months, going through this new experience. The past three
Yeah.
months, I'm like, well, I really need to show up and be transparent and authentic to people. But I was like, you know what? it's not for me right now. I know for myself, as I look back at the phases and cycles of my life, I have years where I am really expressive and outgoing, and I have other years where I'm more more to myself, introspective and quieter. And now that I'm taking that bird's eye view, I'm taking a step back and looking at it. I'm giving myself grace and saying, hey, this is the season where I'm going to be a little bit quieter about my emotions. I'll still engage and be out there and still answer with truth and honesty, but I'm not going to be throwing it out there. Uh, being in the social media space that I am, that I choose to be in, um, it's really important. It's been really important for me to uh, be authentic, because I believe a lot of people perceive inauthenticity online, and I don't want to create a standard where people judge themselves because, oh, look, so and so over here is a great life and all these things are amazing, and it's unattainable, it's unrealistic. So I'd like to show the difficult parts of my life as well, so people won't go through that comparison and they won't be hard on themselves. I just think it's absolutely important. If I'm going to show all the fun, beautiful stuff, it's also important to show the nitty gritty, um, so people don't get disheartened with their own lives.
Yeah.
I have challenges too.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about people who are extremely wealthy, like your Jeff Bezos and your Elon Musk. And I think that we can often dehumanize them, because being so famous and so rich can, I imagine, isolate you from others that not many people can relate to you. So I think that their circumstances may be different, but their human emotions, that we all have the same human emotions at varying degrees of how are we allowed to feel them. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I wanted to circle back to, because I think we do this for the beauty of our conversations. We go on these weaving tangents. Just circling back, some of the things that you kind of felt like you had to navigate and deal with through that process. What was something like the most like challenging thoughts or feelings that were arising?
Sharing my partner physically and intimately, with her her physicality and intimacy with another person. Um, Having her say that, the most challenging thing was having my partner say that, hey, I'm not interested in anyone else, and then that changing, because it was such a core foundational thing, that was it was like, oh, well, if that was such a core foundational thing, it was like, okay, what else do I need to be open to? What else is like not a reality? So like I've anchored myself in these things. Okay, they're honest, they're truthful, they're loving, they show up like this and this, and then one of those linchpins are taken away. Then it's like, oh, the boat rocks. So it's like, okay, is this a pattern? Do I need to be prepared for it somewhere else? But I think one of the issues is that we are so uh, honest and transparent that sometimes something comes up and it may not be like an actual deep truth. It might be just like a passing emotion or desire or feeling, that when it's said, it could feel like everything's changed. Now as we've been a couple months away from this, it's gone back to, she doesn't want another experience than anybody else, and it's gone back to a little bit of the way it was in the beginning. So it was just jarring to have something told to me and then it switch, which I totally honor, because we all grow and evolve, especially over new experiences and things like that. But that was the most jarring thing. It's like, well, uh, is this the only place where that's going to change? Will it change somewhere else? And that's a little bit. It was a little bit terrifying, like, very uneasy. Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say like it was ultimately the kind of, was it like the fear of like the loss of the thing that you, or the potential of losing the thing that you knew, which
Mm.
was very supportive and sturdy for you?
Yeah, it was the fear of not being enough,
Yeah.
the fear of abandonment, the fear that, okay, if this continues in this trajectory, what will our relationship in life look like in another 6 months, another 12 months? Uh, are we going to grow apart? Are we going to come back together? Because if I was going to be sharing my partner with other people, like, well, what am I creating at home? Like, does that mean, because the times where we should have a solo experience, um, I'd be at home, or I had a solo experience with somebody else, but all I could think about was my partner.
Mm.
And and the solo experiences I had were just not that fulfilling, because I couldn't be present because I cared about my partner
Yeah.
and what I'm creating with him.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
good question.
What 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 advice would you have for couples that might be considering expanding their current relationship into, including maybe some of these types of dynamics? Maybe they haven't gone into it yet, but they're kind of interested,
Mm.
they're curious, they're interested in pushing the boundaries. Maybe this leads to a little bit more growth and introspection. What kind of suggestions would you give them to consider?
I would say slower is better, so take it slowly. If you are going to meet with another person or talk with another person, um, have it done. Do it in like you're going to date somebody. Just feel them out, get to know that person, make sure that you want to engage or have them enter into the relationship. Um, Now this can vary a lot because some people really seek intimacy with their connection, and other people don't want intimacy; they just want the physical fun and play. So I think it would really depend on which direction or which category you feel like you're in more of that. Uh, yeah, I think that'd be the number one thing to identify first is like, is there going to be a capacity of intimacy in this, or is this fun and play as a couple? Um, I Now this is my biased opinion here, but it would be, let's do this as a couple first. Let's do this together as a couple first and see how it feels. Um, make sure you hold. Make sure after you have any engagements, there's a period of time where you are focusing on the relationship container, where you're holding space for any grievances, any what your pros and cons of that experience were, things you liked, you didn't like. So having, and also reassuring and filling the cup of the relationship, like nurturing it, going on a date with just you two, expressing your love for one another. That's something that Liv and I did, and it was extremely helpful. We'd have our experiences, and then we'd come back together and fill each other's cup up, have a date night, and remember the reason why we're even capable of having this as a possibility in a relationship is because our relationship is so strong and there's so much love for each other, that was like one of the main things that was extremely beneficial in our relationship. Is we remember, we couldn't create this with another partner. There's something very special about our relationship, and we want to make sure that we nurture that and keep it going, so that we can continue on with our exploration if we want to.
Yeah. Something you just said there that I think is really beautiful is like remembering why and you couldn't create it with another person. And I think that's something that's really important for people to realize because, we can very easily get lost in newness and in shiny objects and even in the dating sphere. Think about like dating apps. There's always like you're always one swipe away from a new possibility, a new potential. And it can, create this kind of like fast moving um, dynamic, where you kind of go from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. But then realizing like people aren't actually disposable. And what you have with your current partner, like you actually, as much as like, oh, well, plenty more fish in the sea, you actually can't have that with another living human the way you have it with the person you're currently with. Now, that might not always be a good thing, but if it is a good thing, it's realizing that that's something that is sacred to be honored and cherished. Because actually, the way, when Liv says, Scott, there's there's a flavor of you that comes alive in a way that no one else can say your
Mm,
name, and you feel the way that you do when she says your name.
yes, it's true. Yeah.
And it's actually to realize that we aren't replaceable, we aren't disposable. And that's one of the things that I really have like felt in the relationship I'm in now, is this feeling of I've we've had conversation on our last episode. We had conversations about some of my past, and where bless her, she was like watching some of the episodes, and she saw that one. She was like, "Oh, okay," and she was like, "Is this still a thing?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." Actually, that's
No.
I've never actually struggled in that way when I'm kind of in a relationship. But one of the things that I really recognize with her is, like, whilst everyone is unique, so you can make that argument for everyone. That person's unique, and actually there's a different dimension of you that's evoked with every person uniquely. However, if you can recognize that the person you're currently with actually brings a part of you out that is like no one else brings out, and it's maybe one of the best parts of you, and it feels the best, and no one else has ever made you feel that good, that's something to really hold on to and to honor and to
Yeah.
cherish.
Yeah, it is. And I've had those feelings and those thoughts with me a lot with my partner Liv.
Yeah.
Like the amount that we've learned about each other over the course of a year was incredible, because there had been so much that we just were so vulnerable about. We were so vulnerable and open about that. I learned this person intimately, quickly. It would have taken me 10 years in my previous marriage to learn that much about a person, and the time and effort and the connection that I've created, it also amplifies the physical intimacy uh, that I can't experience with anybody else. I
Yeah.
know that.
I think one of the things that you guys do that really is beautiful is like how raw and honest you are in your sharings. Um, it's really powerful and commendable as well, because you clearly didn't just open your hearts to each other, you actually kind of open your hearts for everyone else to see in as well, with the things that you're going through and the way that you're navigating it, and the way that you've shown up today doing the same thing. It really is great, brother. And how both of
Thank you.
you are, it is very unique, and it's really powerful.
And I appreciate that. It's really important to us
Yeah.
for people to have the clearest picture into what we're doing. We want people. I know I want people to learn vicariously,
Mm.
an unadulterated story. Just this is the truth.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I hope for.
Yeah. I love that, man. Thank you so much for coming on again,
Yeah.
and for us doing
Thank you for having me.
this. I think there would have been some things in that conversation that were really valuable for people. Before we wrap up, where is the best place for people to find you?
The best place for people to find me is on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, and it's at Holiday Bam. HOLLIDAYBAM.
Awesome, and I'll put a link to that in the
Thank you.
description. And is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, I appreciate everyone listening. I appreciate you so much. You are such a wonderful human, and I'm really grateful in any capacity I can have you in my life. I'm really looking forward to sharing as much nuggets of gold as I can the next time we talk. I'm sure uh, with the way my life goes, there'll be a lot more lessons.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you for the kind words, and thanks for being here once again. All right, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And if something came up for you and you're watching on YouTube, then leave a comment below and let me know. What did you think? What did it evoke in you with any realizations? I'd really love to know. And if you got value from this episode, consider sharing it with someone else. All right, that's it from me. Thanks so much once again, and I'll see you on the next one.